Live and direct right here on NowHipHop.com. This is the Real Talk podcast with Moe Rock and Mark Voss. And, off the air just a few moments ago, Mark Voss was giving me a hard time about drinking this Starbucks iced coffee. What is it about this that you have a problem with?
It's sugar, man. You get more than half of what you need in your daily sugar intake. And I can't even say need, because you really don't need that much sugar to begin with.
So what's wrong with eating sugar? I mean, there's a lot of people that eat Hershey's, they eat 100 gram, they drink Kool-Aid. There's a lot of people.
It's one disaster after another, man. I mean, everything that you eat will have sugar in it. The fruits have sugar in it. But if you're eating sugar constantly over the course of the day, you're going to get way too much. If you look
at a lot of the African American communities in the United States, you see that companies, big time companies, are always pushing these sugar-filled products to their communities. But if you go to the upper echelon suburban communities, where the children are, their parents are engineers, doctors, lawyers, make hundreds of thousands a year, the companies don't push their products to them as much as they do to members of the African American community.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think a lot of the food that's being marketed to the American people in general has a lot of hidden fats and a lot of hidden sugars, Most people, when they buy bread, they don't realize that bread actually also has sugar in it. So if you add these sugary drinks, the coffee drinks on top of that, the sodas and all that, you're going to end up consuming more sugar than you're even aware of. And that's kind of my fight.
One reason why I admire Michelle Obama so much is because she's brought a lot of awareness to eating healthy. Now, you can say what you want to say about your political views. That aspect of it has helped a lot of people. If you go to, for example, I was listening to an interview with 2 Chainz a while back, and he was talking about how he's eating all organic now, and how he's on a vegan diet, and how he's eating healthier. And the interviewer said, well, people in the hood, people in the projects, they can't just go across the street to an organic shop.
Right.
Okay.
Very
because
true.
The companies do not cater to them.
Because they're not going to. If you look, what is organic food? Organic food is, in essence, food as nature intended it. That's like the most basic description, and a lot of people are going to be up in arms me saying that, because they're going to say, well, a lot of them are genetically modified, and even with the GMO topic on its own, there are splits between what's really the definition of a genetically modified crop, because it can go down to gene splicing or the pea experiment to make bigger and better peas or bigger better corn cobs and whatnot. That's all genetically modifying food. And then there's the whole biotech aspect to that people have a problem with as well. But all of that aside, for now, a lot of low-income families are forced to buy the highly processed foods which have all these excitotoxins in it, which have all these added sugars in it, and trans fats and high fructose corn syrup, etc. And even though we're starting to address some of those aspects, like with the whole trans fat thing, most low-income communities still have the problem of not getting food that is nutritious. And the sad irony is that a lot of people that are overweight are actually malnourished.
Most of the people that listen to a radio program, if you look at our demographics, are people within the hip-hop community, the hip-hop culture. A lot of these people that tune into our show on a daily basis may not have a organic shop in their neighborhood. They may not know exactly where to begin, where a good place is to start. A lot of them don't have the opportunity because the opportunity was not given to them from the upper echelons of society.
There are things they can do, though.
What are some steps that they can take that are cost-effective things for them to be able to immediately enhance their health by way of the food they eat?
Well, first of all, what you consume is what you are. So it is very important that everyone eats healthy, nutritious food, right? And no nutritionist is going to disagree with me on that. But there are actually things that you can do even if you are a low-income family. See, part of the marketing strategy is to say, eat the chicken special at whatever restaurant, it's only $5, when in actuality, you can actually get a lot of good food with $5. But even that's not practical for everybody. So something that I highly encourage, and a lot of low-income communities are community organized, right?
Yeah.
So what they could start doing is, for every local block or every project, if you will, can set up a local garden for that particular community with all organic food. It can become a family thing, it become a community event, hey, let's all work together on building up our own organic garden.
Right. That's a great way to start. And having a community come together and make things happen is a brilliant thing. Maybe that will take a little longer to do. Maybe it'll take several months to pull off. Now, I want to break a myth right here on the Now Hip Hop Radio Network about fast food restaurants. Mm-hmm. If you go to the projects, if you go to places where there's public housing, you always will find a lot of fast food restaurants.
Food deserts, as they call it.
Yeah.
Right.
And they try to sell the idea that their food is a low-cost value.
Right.
But if you go to a Wendy's or if you go to a McDonald's, and if you have a couple people that you want to feed with you, that you tag along with you, or even if you're just getting it for yourself, when you get the drink and you get the fries and you look at the receipt, you're really not saving money.
No, that's right.
A lot of times if you go to a McDonald's, you're gonna spend $7 or $8 on your food there.
Right.
Even though they tell you that it's cheap, it's low cost, come get us, but really that is some of the most overpriced food that you can buy.
And, they have to cut somewhere. Where do you cut? If you look at what the government subsidizes, it is actually a lot of this GM biotech manufactured food. And that stuff, the debate right now is it healthy, is it harmful? And that's a really good area to focus on because, more studies need to be done to figure out whether GM crops are healthy or not. The thing is, though, the long-term costs of eating low-quality food, or honestly, fast food to me is a food-like substance. It's not really food because it's not very nutritious, right? It's chock full of sugars that give you a quick high and then you come crashing down again. And that's not really the reason why we eat food. We eat food for energy.
Right.
So the long-term costs are, you might be saving a few bucks now buying a dollar burger instead of a natural burger at some organic food place that's probably going to be far away from low-income housing to begin with. But the long-term costs are the costs of your health care.
Right.
Besides that long-term cost, though, my point is, even the low-term cost is not all that different. The corporations are trying to sell members of the disenfranchised communities in the United States on the idea that McDonald's is a place for you to get low-cost food, will fill you up cheap. Taco Bell, KFC, come to our fast food chains, bring your family, and we'll fill you up in a cheap way. But I'm saying, when you really add it up, you're not saving much. Maybe you'll save $1 or $2 or $3. Maybe you'll spend $8 in McDonald's instead of spending $11 at an organic place. But my whole thing is, these big corporations are trying to fool and trying to manipulate the people in public housing environments in the U.S. into them thinking that by going there they can get low-cost food. I'm saying it's not low-cost food, because that burger is probably worth 20 cents that they sell you for $1. But if you go to a place where they have organic food or higher quality food for you to feed your family, the markup is not going to be as high. Maybe they'll sell you a burger.
That's debatable. It really depends on the business too. A lot of people say Whole Foods. The synonym for Whole Foods is whole paycheck, right? So, and they have been caught marking some things up way more than they're actually worth.
Well, obviously there are exceptions, but in general, if you look at a McDonald's burger, which is all artificial, and you look at a burger that's not artificial, they're probably going to be almost the same cost. Obviously, this one's going to be a little more expensive, but it's not a $30 burger compared to a $3 burger.
Well, you're forgetting there are a few other things that come into play here that are not being mentioned. So I'm not sure if I can fully agree with what you're saying, simply because, a lot of private ranchers are closing down shop because of regulations that force them to pay fines and fees that ultimately drive them out of business. So we're seeing a rise in the cost of beef. And what we're seeing right now as a general trend, not only in this country but around the world, is we're seeing conglomerates forming into what can only be described as international monopolies. Mm-hmm. And these international monopolies want to control what people eat, where people go to eat. What a lot of people don't realize is that there are somewhere around 10 companies that produce all of the food that you can buy in a grocery store. And another reason why I highly encourage people to move organically is because organic food is usually produced by small local farmers, stuff that stays within the community. The money you spend at a grocery store buying food from companies that are international, that money doesn't go back to your immediate community. It goes to an international, massive corporation that almost doesn't even have a face anymore. Mm-hmm. And this is a huge issue because we're losing control over the quality of our food. We're losing jobs to globalization. We're losing much more than people might be aware of. So going to a place like McDonald's, going to a place like KFC or any other of these fast food places really fundamentally transforms the local economy from local to international. And a lot of people say, oh, well, these are negative trends. But if you look throughout history, we've been here before. And I think the last time we were here was leading up to the Great Depression, leading up to World War II, right? A lot of the farmers were being forced off their land. We had the Dust Bowl, right? Long story short, is ultimately, we actually go even farther back than the Dust Bowl. You can go back to the Yellow Press, that reported on the depraved food processing conditions in these meat packing plants, for example. And this Yellow Press journalism really brought the public attention to major issues in the food industry and ultimately corruption on a much larger level, not just in food, but in government and in other aspects of society.
So what can the people that are listening to us right now, a lot of them are single moms, a lot of them have families, a lot of them are young men who are trying to support themselves. In their communities, they do not have many options. They have some options. What are some realistic things that they can do, some cost-effective measures to immediately help form a better diet? I'm going to give one small example. Okay. A lot of people who may eat bacon on a daily basis, if they simply switch to turkey bacon, which is about the same price, they immediately just improve their diet substantially. What are some other examples of things that people that are listening can do, some changes that they can do to help enhance the health of themselves and their family?
Well, family and community must come first. So build connections with your neighbors, become friends with the people around you, take care of your family. These are really obvious things to say. Most people will say, well, obviously, but where do we go from there, right? You start with yourself, you start with your family, you start with your community. If you can get the community to come together to use, for example, a lot of low-income housing, a lot of low-income families rely on subsidies from the government, either food stamps or EBT cards, which is more or less the same thing. You can use those to buy organic food too. You might think, okay, well, I can buy less organic food with the same food stamps, but that's really not the point. I think it's important to community organize. Get the people in your community together, make a garden to grow organic food so that over the course of time you can build an organic garden for your community that will serve everyone that is a part of that community. And ultimately, you can then switch out of eating this food-like substance that you pick up at the grocery store or at fast food restaurants, right? You really want to kind of diversify and have control over your own food, ultimately.
Well, you're listening to The Real Talk Show right here on NowHipHop.com. If you have any questions, you can always visit the contact page on NowHipHop.com and submit your audience questions to our show. We want to hear from you. Today's show was about the disenfranchised communities in the United States, how they're being neglected by organic suppliers, and how constantly major corporations are trying to essentially shove low-quality junk food down their throats
and makes people sick.
And kills people. Right. And they're trying to tell people, this is valuable and this is cheap. My biggest problem with it is it's not cheap at all. If you go to a fast food store, you are substantially overpaying, especially if you get...
Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, your health suffers.
I say in both terms, short term and long term.
Right. I would never buy fast food anymore. You know, once I woke up to what was going on in the food industry, and I realized, my God, we're paying 10 companies that control all these other different brand names. All of our money just to eat food that is actually ultimately bad for our health because they have either too much sugar or they have aspartame in it,
right.
or they have high fructose corn syrup in it. Nature knows what it's doing. I honestly don't think we need people in the biotech industry telling us we know better than nature.
That's true. And we just want to say that a lot of people tuning into a radio program, the whole purpose of what we do is to help enhance the quality of your life. Besides entertainment, we're also all about education. So tune in next week for some more information. Before we sign off here, I want to congratulate all of the thousands and thousands of people who've submitted to the latest Reverb Nation contest. Of course, now hiphop.com has an official project with Reverb Nation that has several million users. And out of the thousands of submissions, we've selected several of them. The latest artist was a very talented girl by the name of Jane Bordeaux. For those aspiring artists who are wondering how you can get on Now Hip Hop, visit our contest page. Find out more information by going on Now Hip Hop and contacting us. We'll send you guys a link. We have some more special announcements we're going to make in the coming weeks. Until then, though, we appreciate you all listening to us on the Now Hip Hop Radio Network. Hopefully today we've enlightened you about the fact that there are major corporations that are trying to manipulate you and lying to you into telling you that this is a good deal. It's not a good deal. Do not go to these fast food restaurants that lie to you and tell you that it's cheap. You're paying 200, 300 times more than what that stuff is worth. Go to the grocery store, get organic food.
It takes time, though.
It takes time, but it needs to be done.
But you guys need to do it for your own benefit,
to be done.
Ultimately, because you kind of want to know what you're eating, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're eating a burger that is like 50% rat meat, I think you'd want to know that, right? Or if you're eating or let's say drinking. Let's say you're drinking a soda and you realize, oh, there are 40 grams of sugar in here. If you know that, your daily recommended, which I still think is very high, but your daily recommended sugar intake is 37 grams.
37 grams.
And you're eating or drinking in one beverage 40 grams of sugar. Imagine all that extra sugar that adds up on top of that. You're going to become diabetic. You're going to get sick.
That's right. And we care about you guys, and we want you guys to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. Until next time, nowhiphop.com. I am Moe Rock.
And I'm Professor Voss. It's always good to be here. Before we go, though, I do feel it is important to tell our audience out there that we are in a new studio and that we are renewing a third season now.
Yeah. This is gonna, we're also working with lots of affiliates, and you will be listening to this program on dozens and dozens of other networks around the world by way of other online radio stations that we're partnering with. To get a full list of the different radio stations, you can visit us at nowhiphop.com. We'll put out some press releases. We're taking this globally now, so we're not only going to cater to United States, but we have lots of stations in Europe. And to get more information on those things, visit us and stay up to date on the progress. Again, we love you guys and we appreciate you guys wholeheartedly. Until next time, sayonara.
Have a good one, guys.